And just when you thought podcasting was out the door, well, Forbes has put out the Forbes list of the highest earning podcasters in 2026. These numbers are staggering. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Who knows? And who made the list? And also who didn't make the list that it's a surprise they're not ranking more when it comes to the big money. All right, so Forbes wanted to get in on the conversation, or for that matter, they are starting the conversation. Now, to keep in mind, this is Forbes' list on the top earners of the podcasting space. This isn't saying the best shows. This isn't saying the most compelling. These aren't the shows that move the needle and have a huge fanfare, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them are, of course, because how do you make all that money and not have a strong following? But in the world of podcasting, things have changed so much over the years that sometimes a show could do really well, monetize really well, but it's not necessarily critically acclaimed. There is a difference when it comes to that. Now, we'll do the list here in a second, and keep in mind, the first question that I have is after we do the list, please hit the comments, like and subscribe, all that good stuff, but do it in a sense of who are the names on this list that you're most surprised are succeeding at the level in which they are, and also who are you surprised didn't make the list? Because though there's some big names, there's a lot of names and a lot of shows that I know and follow and have seen their work, whether I like them or not, and they're not on this list. So that's pretty interesting as well. And as we break this down, this is the lens and the scope as I see things. You know, I worked in radio in the early 2000s. So to see all of this, to see podcasts that I feel were a success and never really got their shine and vice versa, it's all very interesting to me. But if you want to support, randomlyronniejr.com is a great way to do that. Obviously, I've been working in radio since the early 2000s, so definitely putting in my 10,000 plus hours. And if you want to show a little extra love, patreon.com/randomlyronniejr. So here we go with the list as done by Forbes as to who are the top money makers in the space of podcasting. At 18 million, surprisingly enough, Paige DeSorbo and Hannah Berner with the show called Giggly Squad. Giggly Squad was essentially a show that came from a reality show a reality show called Summer House. And ironically, though this duo has done really well, someone who watched Summer House since season 1, I would have never expected to see them ranking in at 18 million with their podcast. That was just a offshoot, sentence on the actual TV show called Summer House on Bravo. It was like, what are you, the Giggly Squad? And then they made the Giggly Squad, and now they're making 18 million, as according to Forbes. Also at 18 million, Pardon My Take, which I believe is Barstool. I'm not for sure. That's Dan and Eric, 18 million there. Andrew Huberman also at 18 million, and Tucker Carlson at 20 million. Also at 20 million, a show that I was watching from the very beginning, the Joe Budden Podcast, which was originally titled I'll Name This Podcast Later. There were other hosts. Things have changed within that show, but one note about Joe Budden and the 20 million is his show was one of the shows early on. It was when he was working at Complex Media also, but it was one of the shows early on that first went to Spotify. Joe Budden's podcast actually went to Spotify before any of the other big names. It was sort of like a test run. He did the 2-year contract and then went independent, mostly through Patreon and other endeavors. At 21 million, you have Jay Shetty. The show is called On Purpose. The show began in 2019, so pretty impressive to have done so well since 2019, though that is, 7 years. Still pretty impressive to be so high ranked on this Forbes list. At 22 million, you have Bill Simmons with the Bill Simmons Podcast Network. 22 million, obviously wonderful, but the space that he holds in broadcast, both as a writer, producer, podcaster, and being in the business so long, and the amount of shows and employment that he does offer with the Bill Simmons Podcast Network, I'm actually surprised that he and the Ringer, Bill Simmons, aren't ranking higher than 22 million. But again, nothing to laugh at, obviously. Amy Poehler, 24 million, and it does well in terms of credibility, always wins a lot of awards. What I like about Amy Poehler's podcast is that it is simple, it is peaceful, it is nice, and it is warm. And in the podcast space, a lot of times things have to be very true crime or very intense in a certain way. So though her show may not be the funniest show ever, it's a nice version of what she already does as a comedian. Amy Poehler in at 24 million. And a show that's been consistent, Shepard with the Armchair Expert, 25 million. This show is one, I've been working in the world of radio since the early 2000s. I would have never been able to guess that people would latch on to this, but he does, of course, talk about things that he went through, shares elements of recovery, and Shepard, of course, married to actress Kristen Bell. If anything he's done with the Armchair Expert is he has stayed consistent. So one of the things about making these big amounts is like consistency. Consistency is key, sometimes bigger than anything else. So once again, that's Shepard, 25 million. Wow. Remember, he used to work or be on the show called Punk'd? Like, who would have thought? And he was also on Parenthood, too, the TV show. He's been on a lot of things, but this is where the big money comes, 25 million. Charlamagne the God, well, he's making 27 million, which is incredible. His first big moment would probably be as a co-host years ago with Wendy Williams when she was doing New York radio, WBLS, prior to her even doing her talk show. And of course, he stayed consistent, followed his journey, has had different layers and visions within the way he does his shows. At one point, building his career on The Breakfast Club, Power 105.1, he was raw and a bit juvenile and loud and obnoxious, and even treated the guests kind of interestingly at times. But throughout it all, he's continued to stay the path, and he's even moved into a space of, yes, fun radio, morning show radio in New York, but also mental health as a forefront of something that is very much important to him as well. So that's Charlamagne the God at 27 million. You have the show Pod Saves America at 28 million. You have Alex Cooper at 32 million. And as I try not to judge, this one I probably will have to judge. 35 million for Jason and Travis Kelce. Though Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift have become a thing, for them to be so new and the show to be a little on the basic side, no jealousy required for this comment, but 35 million is quite a bit. Mel Robbins, she moves the needle a little bit in the self-help space. Some people either really enjoy that self-help energy. Others think some of it is a load of shit, but 35 million, and she has kind of found her space in the podcast lane at a pretty early on stage, and she's just stuck with it. So she is ranking at 35 million. Actors Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Haynes, they have a show called Smartless, 37 million. I believe it was on HBO at some point. It's one of the shows where the three actors have done so well. Seems like they kind of just threw it up at the wall, like, see what sticks. Smartless, it seemed to stick. People seem to like it. I've worked in the world of radio broadcast. I take it very seriously. I didn't ever think it was that entertaining, but it is at 37 million. At 42 million, Ashley Flowers, Steve Bartlett at 45 million. In the world of self-help, and I think he is a little bit more on the interesting side. Sometimes the self-help shows, it's not boring or contrived, but it's so much of the same thing. I do think that Steve Bartlett has a little more to offer, and I think that's why the 45 million definitely makes sense. And at 70 million, the guys over at the Technology Business Podcast Network, the 70 million is John Coogan and Jordy Hayes. I think the world of technology does move so quickly, so a space to be able to get information, updates constantly is something that people really dive into. Sometimes I feel like the updates are too much, not necessarily just from them, but from all elements of technology. Sometimes we don't need information so quickly, but I can see how this would be a top earner in the space. And as no surprise, Joe Rogan, I remember seeing him on red carpets years ago and, seeing when he was doing Fear Factor. And I saw him once at the Comedy Store and it was very interesting. It was like, oh, wow, Fear Factor is what you know him from as a host, but he's actually different in his comedic stylings. And this was back in the early 2000s. Would have never guessed he led into podcasting at sort of an early era and it just takes shape as it did. Lots of opinions, polarizing thoughts on, him doing and utilizing the platform the right or wrong way. And still, at the end of the day, he is ranking on the Forbes list at 82 million. All right, those are the big names. Are you checking out those shows? Are you thinking the list was overrated, underrated? Weigh in the comments, like, comment, and subscribe. Podcasting, a business that is not stopping anytime soon.